Okay, now that you have your line drawing in, you're ready to begin step 7, preliminary shading. And to keep you organized, I'm going to give you a numbered checklist. So to recap what we've done so far: step 1, perimeter lines. Step 2, outline your subject. Step 3, major interior lines. Step 4, medium-sized lines and important shapes. Step 5, minor interior lines like wrinkles. Step 6, line weight. And step 7, preliminary shading. Preliminary shading is just shading in the basic shapes of the shadows with a mid-range lead pencil like a 2B. As I said earlier, I'd like you to try to limit the range of pencils you use to reach all 10 values in this drawing. So you're going to have to rely more on the pressure you apply to your pencil to get the gradients. You should be able to range from around 4th value up to 8th value with a 2B lead, so that should cover your midtones. Begin by just lightly hatching in a value anywhere you see a shadow. Careful not to lose those cracks you drew earlier in the shading. You can darken them slightly if it helps. Think of all the shadows as one flat shape for now. Don't try to create gradients, just fill it in right up to the edge where the shadow starts to transition. As you know, we're going to build all of these shadows up to the correct values. But first, I want to define the shapes of the shadows. Trust the process. I know it feels slow at first, but the next hand you draw is going to go much faster. For many of you, this is the first time someone has laid out a step-by-step approach to drawing, so there is going to be a learning curve. Okay, the first coat of shading is in. Take a moment to step back and look for any areas that need adjusting, then we'll begin building up the values. Okay, let's begin step 8, building up the values. But that doesn't mean I'm just going to attack one finger with a 6B pencil. Remember, we have to build up the darks, and not just in one area at a time. In other words, I don't want you to shade in one finger perfectly, then move on to the next finger. It's best to work on all the shading collectively. So for my second pass, I'm going to put another coat of shading over the whole hand, but this time start putting in the mid-tone gradients, so stick with your 2B pencil. This is a great example of values all being relative, and playing tricks on your eye. If you look closely at this light area inside the shadow, you'll see that it's not as light as the top of the hand. It's actually about fourth value. It just looks lighter because it's surrounded by shadows. And as you can see, once I put it in, all the shading I did around it that looked dark enough a minute ago now looks too light. That's why it's best to work on all the shading collectively. Once you put in the darks, it'll be easier to see the midtones. Put in the broad strokes first, then the detail will come as a natural next step in the process. Before I move on, let's take a moment to uncomplicate the shadow on the palm. It looks confusing at first, but if you squint your eyes and just look for the shapes, you'll see that it's just 3 dark spots, 2 triangles, and a diamond shape. Again, I'm still just using my 2B pencil, because I want my shading to stay between 8th and 4th value for this step in the process. Once the midtones are in, I'll finish building to 10th value with a softer lead like a 3 or 4B. Pay attention to how much lighter some of the areas in the shadow are. My guess is this area is around 6th value. Be careful not to overshade it. That's reflected light and helps give the image dimension and structure. We'll get more into lighting during lesson 9 and 10. I think this is a good time to give ourselves a little litmus test. I'm going to teach you how to use the grayscale you made as a tool to help you make sure your values are always correct. Let me show you how it works. Use the printed side of the grayscale to compare to your photo reference and the shaded side to compare to the values in your drawing. So for example, this spot looks like its ninth value, and this is what pencil lead ninth value should look like. Now when I look at the value in my drawing, I can see it needs to get darker, so I'll build it up until the values match. It's that simple. You can use this chart as a tool to help you get perfect values on every drawing and painting you do from now on. I'll bring this part of the palm up to about fourth value as well. You're going to notice the drawing start to take form once that's shaded in, because that completes the plane of the palm of the hand. That's right, although there are many values and shadows, that's all one plane. Can you see now? That dark area isn't a different plane, it's the cast shadow of the thumb. I'm just darkening the shadow in the crease some more. Remember how dark that seemed earlier when we were doing the line weight step of the drawing. Now look how light it looks up against the rest of the values around it. There's no way you could have guessed that. You need all of the values surrounding it to make an educated judgment. Notice I'm not putting in the lighter detail or any fine lines yet. I'm saving that to do with an H or a 4H pencil in the next step in the process, and my favorite part, step 9, putting in light values.